What's up, guys? How is everyone doing? Friday, April 25th, round 350 here on the East Coast, and mega news just a couple hours ago. Something that we've known under this banner for a long time, but it feels so good to be finally official, finally announced. Dustin the Diamond Poirier was live earlier today on the Pat McAfee show, ESPN, by the way. Great watch. Go watch it. It was super funny, informative. It was great. Dustin the Diamond Poirier, Pat McAfee, match made in heaven. But it's finally official. I should have put some more notes here. July 19th, UFC 318, New Orleans, Louisiana, The Last Dance. It's finally here. It's finally started. It's wild. It's the thing, my first instant reaction, my first thing, and there's so many things I want to go with it, is that it's the perfect send-off. It really is the best, I would say, in all of the UFC, and maybe like one of the great sports send-offs of all time. And I know it sounds maybe hyperbolic, but win or lose, to main event a card in New Orleans, where it all started. And he said it on the interview today, where he first put on those gloves, to lay the gloves in the octagon after a win or after a loss in the main event for the BMF championship against Max Holloway. It's the perfect send-off. The Last Dance. I'm writing that in right now. Is yeah, there we go. The Last Dance. I think it's perfect. It's perfect. I think the matchup is perfect. The location is perfect. I know he always wanted Dustin, always wanted to be a undisputed world champion. But I think the BMF even adds a little something to it. Imagine if he wins and puts the title on. And we'll get into that. There's a lot of things I want to break down and break out of this. But it's I think it's awesome. I think it's the perfect send-off. To me, it's I can't think of a better last fight for any fighter. Especially knowing going into Habib Nurmagomedov was pretty cool, but like we didn't know that going into it. For us to have the buildup of Dustin's last fight, I think this is the best of all time for the UFC has ever done it. So that's that. I wanted to start off with that. Another little tidbit before I get into Dustin and before I get into Max. Dustin even said that he threw out the idea of, Gaethje as a trilogy. He threw out the idea of Ilya to Poirier. I thought that was pretty big. And then the UFC wanted Holloway, and he was fine with Holloway. Those are the three guys that Poirier put out to the UFC, and they landed on Holloway, which I think is the right matchup. I do. The Gaethje is very close. I don't like the Ilya matchup for Dustin's last fight. I think he needed a legend on legend. Both guys a little bit older in their career towards the end. Ilya doesn't seem like the right matchup for Dustin's last dance, in my humble opinion. But that's that. But I am intrigued that his name was out there. I'm going to throw that out there. The BMF title. What does that mean? I just think it adds a little bit. Maybe the picture. Imagine if his daughter's in the octagon, his wife's in the octagon, and if Dustin wins and they put the title around him, I think that's very cool. It's good for the poster. And you ready for this one? Maybe more than anything, I thought about this. I haven't heard this out there. There's a feeling to me that if Dustin wins this championship and it's his last dance and he retires, I think they retire the BMF championship. This could be the last dance for Dustin Poirier and the last dance for the BMF championship. I think it's very fitting. I think it's a show of respect to Dustin. Hey, you're the BMF. No one did it better. No one was more badass than you. We're kind of the lineage of this championship is done. You retired the belt. I think that could come to effect. So that's another thing I like. All right, let me get into Dustin. 30-9. Has never lost 2 fights in a row. How crazy is that in all of his career? All the biggest wins, the biggest losses, some of the matchups he's fought. He's fought the up-and-comers, the who's who, fighting Habib and Islam, and fighting Conor 3 times. The man has never lost twice. Fighting Gaethje twice. Everyone heading to Nola. Yeah, I feel that. We got that Dustin right there, Christian. We got it. I think there might be a very fight bananas event. Let's just say that. So I think it's for Dustin more than anything. I know this sounds wild. I don't think the win or the loss matters as much as Max. I'll get into the Max in a second. I just think it's about Dustin, full circle, starting in New Orleans, ending in New Orleans, main eventing, headlining the card. This card they really made for Dustin, let's be honest. And New Orleans doesn't get a UFC pay-per-view. It's not for Dustin. That's for Dustin's last dance. So I don't think a win or a loss affects Dustin Poirier's legacy one way or another. I'll say that. I think the win and him putting away the BMF title for good, I think that's pretty cool. But the going forward, 100%, this is all on Max Holloway. Like Max Holloway, 26-8, an all-timer, moving up to 155. I think the 145 one, the weight cut it's over. And also too, he lost to Volkanovski 3 times, and now Volk is the champion again. I think the Ilya getting lost. I think Max is done as a featherweight. This is a very, very important fight for Max Holloway going forward. Max is 33 years old. He's kind of become a once-a-year type of fighter as well. So let's just call a spade. What does Max have? 3 to 5 fights left? Like 3 to 5 fights left? If I'm totally wrong, he has 6. If I'm totally wrong, he has 2. He's taken a lot of damage in his career. This is such an important fight for Max Holloway. If Max wins this fight, he is right in that circle of he fights Armand next, Gaethje next, he fights Patty next. He fights like a number 1 contendership fight after this. That's big. If he loses this fight, I don't know. Like it's such a bad word for our business, but he becomes a little bit of a gatekeeper for the lightweight division. He becomes number 6, number 7, and a young guy that needs to go through him, or maybe an older guy in that top 5 who loses 2 or 3 in a row like a Gaethje. I think they do need they might run that back. Patty versus Max. How about if Diego Lopez doesn't want to cut featherweight weight anymore? He wants to move up to lightweight. How about Diego Lopez? First fight is a lightweight. Maybe Max introduces him to the lightweight division. So it's a very important fight. If Max wins this fight, he's in that top 4 area. He fights. He's 1 away for the championship. We don't know what's happening with Islam. Let's see if Ilya wins. It'll be better for Max if he wins and Ilya loses. Then it's like him versus Charles, him versus Gaethje. He's right in that mix. So, yeah, I like that. Charles and Max, that could be big. But if he loses, he doesn't get that fight. If he loses this fight, he becomes 7 or 8. And I really think it's him versus Chandler. It's he has to fight some of those young American top team guys. If it's a Grant Dawson, Gamrot, Moicano versus Holloway. So a very big fight for him. And also this, I know it's a little thing. He was swept by Volkanovski 0-3. He's already 0-2 against Poirier. This is a big fight for Max. Like, he doesn't want to be 0-3 against Max Holloway too. It's like, so you're an all-timer. You had some of the best moments in UFC history. You made a ton of money. You went 0-3 against Volk, 0-3 against Dustin. Ilya stopped you. Connor beat you. It's just like, it's a thing. It's like I said, I think it's a more important fight for Max Holloway than Dustin Poirier. And that's my instant reaction. This fight to me is more about feelings and emotions. And I think it's going to be a very emotional night for Dustin Poirier. Max beats him. I think so. I am a huge Dustin guy. One of my all-time favorite fighters. Never miss a Dustin Poirier fight. Right now, my instant kind of gut feeling, I think I'm leaning Max Holloway. I just think it's going to be too much of an emotional week, emotional month. He knows this is the last weight cut. He knows this is his last fight week. He knows this is a lot of last. Also, too, being in the hometown, I hear it all the time. You have an uncle that calls you that needs a ticket, friends and family that need stuff. More things for his foundation that will be done that week. It's just going to be a loud week for Dustin Poirier, for sure. The last thing, and I'm going to let you run. Like I said, this is just a real quick instant reaction. Dustin Poirier, Max Holloway, UFC 318. Let me put that in there. Poirier versus Holloway, UFC 318. Oh, let me put that in. The last thing, how great does New Orleans feel? The one thing I would say, I think the UFC has been a little cookie cutter. Like, we all know that they're going to have 2 pay-per-views in Abu Dhabi. They're going to have 2 pay-per-views in Las Vegas. November is Madison Square Garden. Spring is Miami. Late summer's been Utah for the last 3 years. Like, we've known these pay-per-views. They've done New York, Newark, New Jersey, like 2 or 3 years in a row. Just seems it's been we know we're going to Perth, right? In January, February. We're going to Canada one time. It just feels like the pay-per-views are kind of set. New Orleans was not on their pay-per-view blueprint a year before and a year after. So this has been thrust in the middle of the summer, July 19th, UFC 318, New Orleans, Louisiana gets a pay-per-view. Dustin Poirier's last dance. Incredible, guys. I don't know if you have any instant reaction you guys self. I would love to hear it, or any questions. But if not, I'm going to run Poirier Holloway 3 for the BMF Championship, July 19th, UFC 318. Incredible, guys. I can't believe it. Poirier gets his last dance in New Orleans. He fights one of the greats in Max Holloway. Great matchup, a great send-off. Maybe the greatest send-off, I believe, in UFC history. They did it right. Main event fight in his hometown. Doesn't get better than that. So there we go, guys. Instant reaction. Holloway versus Poirier. UFC 318, July 19th. Put it on your calendars. We'll see everyone then.